All right, you guys, today we're going to be talking about something very important in context of self improvement, growth, inner work, shadow work, healing, improvement. And that thing is that knowing and awareness does not equal healing and shift. Knowing that something exists in this world or even within you, knowing the mechanisms does not equal shifting your inner world, does not equal healing, does not equal taking action, does not equal progress. And it's very important to understand, and I want to give you an example to really understand what I mean. Sometimes we look at people, and as external observers, there are certain people that it seems like they are so empathetic, emotionally intelligent. They know about mother wound, father wound, traumas, inner child healing, abandonment wound, betrayal wound. They have, the awareness of where certain things come from, how their own behavior influences people outside, where did that behavior came from. So it seems like they are those old souls, and they are those highly developed people with high level of self-awareness and self-consciousness. And then we look at people who really have no idea. We say something to them and it's always a surprise. It's always a new discovery. And sometimes we automatically think that the first group of people is more falls under the category of older souls, more like empaths kind of a soul, people with that awareness. They're gonna reach higher level of consciousness in their life, whereas we say that the other group, well, maybe they have a couple hundred years to go. But it's not necessarily the case. And I want to give you an example that is based on not just my experience with people around me, but also clients that come to me on session, and the level of knowledge. And I'm wanting to say this to you to encourage you, if you are someone who you feel like you know nothing about human nature, about spirituality, about healing, shadow work, about all these mechanisms, because again, knowledge does not equal action. So I myself feel that people divide themselves into two groups. And again, I see this amongst my clients, amongst people who follow me, who message me, who talk to me, and also in my real life, friends, family, people I meet and I talk to. The first group of people, it may be that whatever you say to them, they will say, I know. I know that I have this wound. I know that this is the experience I went through in my childhood. I know that this is the mechanism. I know where anxious or avoidant attachment style come from. They are very much aware of the patterns that exist. They can connect the dots between their childhood, the behavior of their parents, of people in their environment, their own behavior, how that behavior influenced their children. They're very much aware. So what? Because they do absolutely nothing. The mere fact of awareness, us talking about the existence of these wounds, the existence of these patterns, it makes no difference. It is completely neutral. It is pointless, and the knowledge itself does zero for you. Now, there is this other group of people that I absolutely adore, and those are people that, whether again amongst my friends or people who come to me on session, we start to talk about something and I say to them, do you realize that this pattern within you comes from this and that perhaps happened in your childhood? Do you realize that this fear within you comes from this and that? Do you realize that this behavior within your child comes from that wound within you? And their reaction is like, oh, are you serious? Because they really don't know. The patterns, the whole thing, and I highlight this to you guys always, behavioral patterns are behavioral patterns until we recognize them. The moment you recognize them, they stop being patterns because they're no longer subconscious and automated. They become choices. If you know that you are avoidant, yet you avoid, you are taking a conscious choice. It's no longer a pattern. If you know that you are anxious, if you know that you worry too much, if you know that you have a specific wound that causes a specific reaction, it is no longer an automated pattern. It is a conscious choice. So that second group of people, when you say these things to them, they really didn't know. They really didn't have the awareness of all these things, right? So they're like, oh my God, are you serious? Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me, how do I fix it? And that is the approach that we really need. Tell me, how do I fix it? And sometimes it is so much easier to work with people who don't have that awareness, who don't seem to have that knowledge around spirituality, about shadow work, about wounds, about traumas, about behavioral patterns, about human nature. But what we really need is that craving within to conquer all these things. It's that curiosity. It's this curiosity in contrast with denial. That's all that is. And I want you to understand that oftentimes those people who have the awareness but do nothing with it, they sometimes even subconsciously think that they're a little superior to people who unknowingly follow these patterns. But the moment you make those unknowingly following patterns people aware, they want to make a change. And that is really what we need. That is really what we need on our journey of growth, on our journey of progress. Being a expert. And this is why I always highlight to you guys, okay? This may not be 100% rule. This is not a channel. This part is just my opinion. But oftentimes, this is how I see the huge difference between spiritual teachers and healers and people who are therapists, psychiatrists, and fall under that category, which is a matrix made, because all that knowledge is based on a matrix made conquering of the mind knowledge. If you watch me, you know my opinion around that. But this is oftentimes the case. People who are spiritual healers, true spiritual healers, are people who went through this journey themselves. And they're usually people who are very much dormant and very much unaware until the moment of their awakening, when that curiosity and that willingness to grow awakened and they started progressing. Boom, 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 boom. You're not going to have a spiritual teacher who's a good spiritual teacher, that you know that there's tons of charlatans, but actual spiritual teacher, I can tell you right now that it's someone who went through this journey of deep inner work, deep healing, in order to become a shadow worker, a reader, energy reader, a shaman, any kind of healer. You must have went through this journey on your own, because you showed curiosity, because you showed willingness, because you showed courage. Give it to me. Let's go. Explain this to me. I want to conquer myself. I want to expand my consciousness. I want to grow, I want to heal, I want to live a better life. Now, very often when we talk about therapists and psychiatrists, you deal with people who had so much problems with themselves, with their minds, that they didn't know how to manage that. So they went that line of study to actually learn about those problems. And now they're pretending to teach others about those problems and human patterns, but yet them themselves are not completely healed. And you would see this in observing in your life, even people who are, therapists, psychiatrists, and do they have it all pulled together? Are they completely centered, aligned, peaceful? Some of them surely are, but for most part, they usually wrecks and they usually completely lost and completely confused. Whereas true spiritual teachers, yes, it's true that sometimes some teachers are still on a path of expansion, of growth. Until the day we die, a true spiritual teacher, I cannot imagine someone calling themselves spiritual teacher and a healer saying that I know it all. It's a constant journey of expansion. Our human mind is not capable of storing as much information as our soul, eternal, all-knowing soul knows. So there's always something that we can learn. There's always capacity to grow and to expand. But we have to reach a point when we are really balanced, when we're really centered, when we really conquered our shadows, to be able to hold that space for other people. This is just a side note, but today I wanted to share with you. And I wanted for you to understand that oftentimes we confuse those two things, and you can have someone, and I actually know those people in my private life who know a lot about human nature, about human psyche, about patterns, behavioral patterns, about wounds and shadows, yet they have so much darkness that they are afraid to face, that they are afraid to conquer, that they are afraid to take that conscious choice of showing up for yourself, be it through healing, through sessions, through self-work, however you want to choose that path for yourself, so that knowledge serves absolutely nothing in comparison to people who know nothing, but they have the willingness and they have the curiosity, and they have oftentimes people who know less, they are easier to acknowledge the wisdom of another person, and they are more willing to allow themselves to be guided by someone, which makes their growth so much more beautiful, so much faster. They just blossom in an amazing, beautiful way. Within a couple of years, you can form a completely new person, whereas that person that started with a knowledge will end up most probably the way they started, because knowledge itself, although knowledge is power, if you don't know how to use that knowledge for growth, for supporting yourself, supporting others on the path of life, it serves absolutely nothing.